Here's our next project. Gonna remove a hot tub today. Local neighbor in Anthem, Arizona. Power's turned off, water's drained. One of the sides is off. Had a bunch of rats in it, they said, so should be interesting. There might be some critters today. I'll make sure to get some footage for you. Try to make it somewhat of a how-to guide if anybody else wants to remove their own hot tubs. Generally, the tools that I use, one is a good pry bar. That allows you to use the second tool, which would be a 4x4, to get some leverage up under the hot tub. Use the 4x4 as a fulcrum and pry up an edge of the hot tub and get some boards under it, just so it's up off the surface of the pavers or whatever it's lying on. That way when I start cutting it with the Sawzall, which is the third tool, I bring two Sawzalls usually, one battery powered and one in the red box, which is corded, which brings me to the fourth tool, which is a good extension cord. Safety glasses, hearing protection. Sometimes I'll use a mask when it's real dusty and nasty. So then once it's up off the surface, we're able to cut it up. And the transfer stations where we live like it to be cut up in at least 2 pieces. Sometimes we'll cut it up in 3 or 4 just to make it manageable. It depends on the gate that we're hauling it through. In this situation, the gate is it's a good 3 feet wide, so I'll cut it up in as many pieces as I need to make it manageable. But you can see the trailer out in the back, parked. So yeah, I start by removing the top and then the sides around it. I use a pry bar and our next tool, which would be a sledgehammer. Super helpful. The loppers, I call them, and the bolt cutters, I use those for cutting cable wire as well as all of the hoses. The hoses inside the hot tub tend to cut a lot better with the loppers versus, say, the Sawzall blade. It kind of just bounces around too much. So without further ado, I'm going to get to work. So these Sawzall blades we've found to work pretty good. It's a general purpose Sawzall blade. I get the 12-inch one, so it can reach through a lot of the foam. These hot tubs have some pretty thick areas, like in the bench area and down the walls. But I'm going to get started by removing the panels on each of the 4 sides, getting rid of the cover on the top, and then I'll start removing some of the motors and pumps underneath. And I'll start the time lapse for you. Here we go. So as you can see, all 4 sides are removed, all the panels and the foil kind of insulation. You can also see in the bottom there's been some pack rats that have brought a lot of mess into here. So in the remainder of the video, you'll see me wearing a mask. Quite a bit of the cutting and a lot of the removal. You see all these nests in here. There's probably some dead rats in here. Let's see if we can find one. I don't see one yet, but I'll bet you in this nest there is one. Maybe more. Usually are. So here we go. So you might have seen there, I used some leverage on the pry bar and some blocks of wood and just lifted it up off the pavers. Gives me a little more space when I'm cutting, so I'm not ruining my blade or their pavers. And I also pulled out the pumps, some of the heavier electrical components of the spa, so that's removed. And now it's the fun part where I actually get to cut the thing in half. So I'll be cutting the fiberglass tub itself, as well as using the loppers and whatever tools I need to cut hoses and the frame around it. So I try to keep it in structurally sound pieces, so to speak. It's nice having these wood corners on it because that allows me to use the dolly and wheel it out over this rough surface. So that's pretty helpful. Here we go. Quick note on safety. Even though it's kind of a pain in the butt sometimes, for sustainability purposes, it's a good idea to wear eyeglasses. You only get 2 eyes typically, so it's nice to hang on to them. And then ears, usually only get 2 ears. I know you can get hearing aids when you're old, but I'd rather not have to do that or make it worse than it needs to be. So I put these Milwaukee earbuds in that earplugs in that really block a lot of the sound. I mean, I can hear myself speaking right now, but it muffles it a lot, takes away some of the pitches. And then this bad boy, I'd rather not have to wear, but there's something called the hantavirus, and that comes from rat droppings. You can Google it, but it's just not something I'm interested in getting for my health. So even though it restricts my breathing, I'll probably have to take more breaks wearing this. It helps for sustainability purposes. So a little quick note on safety. Also, a good pair of gloves makes a big difference. You don't want to cut your fingers off. That's how you cut a hot tub in half. Or like I said before, a really good sharp Sawzall blade. The Diablo blades tend to work pretty good, general purpose. A foot long, and they can reach most places you're gonna need to go in a hot tub. This doesn't have the super thick foam like some hot tubs do. So if the one you're cutting up does, just know that you'll appreciate having the longer blade. This is all the junk that rats tracked in. All sorts of things. So if you're into critters and rodents, I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun cutting up hot tubs. But yeah, I got it stood on its end here. I'm gonna load it on the dolly and get it taken to the trailer. So that's kind of next step. And this third piece, or the other half of the hot tub, I may end up cutting into 2 pieces, just because it's a little wider on one half, and it might pack in the trailer a little better. So once that's out, then it's all about cleaning up the base of the hot tub where all the junk and mess is. So the wheelbarrow and rake and snow shovel and lots of trash bags come in pretty handy for that part. Here we go. So the actual hot tub itself is removed, all the frame is removed, taken out most of my tools and brought in a few cleanup tools. Snow shovel, very important to have. A good idea to spray it down with bleach after you use it for this, because all the rat droppings, you don't want any viruses on there. And broom and rake do the same thing after you use them. Big plastic thick garbage bags and some duct tape. That's what I'm going to use to clean up the bottom pad. Kind of seals up the bottom of the hot tub. Has a bunch of rusty staples that inevitably come loose because the wood frame rots out, and that piece gets pulled off when I'm removing the hot tub. So inside of that burrito is a big nasty pile of rat droppings and whatever the pack rats brought in. So gonna get this cleaned up and we'll be on our way. The hot tub is all gone and the area's been sanitized. We sprayed it down with bleach. There's always going to be a huge mess under your hot tub, especially if it's been there for a long time. Pack rats tend to invade and bring with them lots of other junk like mesquite pods from trees or dog poop. It's crazy how many pack rats lug that stuff in underneath hot tubs, along with other trash, and they make nests in there. And that's a pretty big health hazard. So it's kind of what I stressed earlier about wearing a adequate mask. And then once you're all done, to spray the area down with bleach. Once that was done, we hosed it off as well. But this area still is pretty nasty. I recommended to the homeowner to actually have about a foot of space on all the way around the perimeter of the rocks removed, just because there's so many rat droppings. Even though they've been sprayed with bleach, it's probably a good idea to have them removed. And then consider removing the pavers as well and putting something else here that hasn't been destroyed the way the rats treated this. So the customer, the homeowner, is really happy to get this space in their yard back. Probably added about 200 to 300 square feet of usable space. The hot tub only took up about 100 square feet, but when you realize that you couldn't see anything past it, it's like an eyesore. It just made the whole area unusable. So another very happy customer in Anthem, Arizona, served by Around Town Junk Removal. All loaded up, ready to head to the dump. Got this thing tarped down. Pretty full. Check out these mountains in the back, these little hills. They're so green this time of year. It's just beautiful. Gotta love the winter in Arizona.